Hello everyone, I'm NiiNiiFC, home for all of your Chelsea and football related talk. And today I've got two special guests with me, Ben from 90min Football and Richard Amofa from Off the Post News. Now, Ben, if you want to introduce yourself.
What's going on, guys? I'm Ben. I work for 90min. You should subscribe to our channel because there's a lot of stuff going on there. We've got troops in, week out, if you want to abuse him. We've got a lot of people there, take a lot of stick, but I'm the only true Chelsea fan there, so give us a subscribe and I'll see you over there sometime soon.
Decent. And Richards?
Hi guys, nice to meet you all. So I run a website called Off the Post News. We shed light on the development of young players through news and interviews as well. So obviously we do a lot of stuff with the young players at Chelsea and young academy players all around the country. So give our Twitter page and Instagram and Facebook pages a follow and a like. It'd be good to interact with you guys on there.
Perfect. And all of their descriptions below, will include their Twitter handles and everything and all the right information. So you guys don't forget that. But yeah, this live stream today is going to be detailing what our aspirations are for next season. Now, to start off, we're going to talk about how we think the summer's going so far. So Ben, I'm going to let you take this away. What's your thoughts on how the summer's going so far? Are you optimistic? Are you a bit nervous? What's your thoughts?
Well, I think, like most Chelsea fans, I'm kind of aware that it's been a little bit quiet. I think it's a pretty obvious thing. What's happening is that we're waiting for this new Nike deal to drop on July the 1st. They don't want to be introducing players with kits and sponsorship that isn't moving forward. Nike are paying us a lot of money to sponsor us from next season. I feel like that's kind of led from a very commercial point of view. But I think from what I'm hearing off the pitch, it sounds like there is a lot of deals going on. But a lot of people are very frustrated that we haven't announced any signings yet. I get it completely. City have moved, United are moving, everyone else is kind of moving forward with their transfer business. But we're taking our time, but I'm hoping we're taking our time for the right reasons. A lot of good players being linked. Not sure all of them are the right fit for Chelsea, but I trust Conte and I trust the board more than I trust a few people that I see on Twitter saying that this guy's got the first touch or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And Richard, what's your thoughts so far?
Well, I mean, as a non-Chelsea fan, sorry to put it out there, I think what Chelsea need to focus on is the fact that, so after you won the league in 2015, that summer wasn't particularly that strong, and especially the fact that you got Champions League this year, which you didn't have last year, it is actually a really big summer for you guys. So although there hasn't been a lot of movement so far, obviously Conte's got good pedigree. He knows what he's doing. So, like I said, the transfer window isn't even open yet. There's plenty of time. I'm pretty sure you know where to strengthen. So, just a case of getting those signings in, hopefully as early as possible for you guys, and kind of gelling the team together ahead of the start of next season.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a lot of panic, especially on social media. I think a lot of it's a bit unnecessary. We don't need as many signings as some of our rivals in the league. I mean, obviously we're the champions. We got 30 wins in this season. It's never been done before. And really, we only need a few key positions to strengthen. So I think the most exciting report so far is this news of Alexandro. I think this is definitely a player to really upgrade the team, bring life to Eden Hazard, and really help transform how we attack. It seems like this is a transfer, in my opinion, that looks like it's going to happen in terms of all the reports. They seem to be intensifying a lot. There's been official reports of another bids being made. And I think, it's just going to come down to some Emanalo magic if we can, sweet talk him. And, I mean, when it comes to the finances and wages, it's going to be fairly simple. But, yeah, I mean, there's been talks of a lot of players. Bakayoko seems to be one that looks like it's going to happen. And potentially Matic should be moving out. Ben, what's your thoughts on Bakayoko? Do you think he's the right replacement for Matic? Is he an upgrade? Is he the type of signing we need?
Matic is one that I've always had really mixed feelings about. When he came back to Chelsea, he was so good in that first half season, and that year we won the league, he was unbelievable. But he was one of those players under Mourinho in that kind of ill-fated last season that really, I don't want to say showed his true colours, because he's a class player. Like, you can see it. Like, he oozes class. Like, everything he does, that goal in the semi-final against Spurs a few weeks ago, proved just what he can do. But he seems to be one of these players that he has too many off days, And for me, we were starting him over Fabregas too many times last season. And Fabregas, if it was up to me, like, I would honestly build the team around Fabregas because he is such a good player and he's so creative that to drop him for Matic so often last season was really frustrating. At the end of the day, we did win the league and it did help us get over the line. But if he was to leave and we were to bring in someone like Bakayoko, I don't know. Everyone saw Monaco this season. Everyone saw how good Monaco were in the Champions League. Bakayoko was one of the ones that stood out the most until they played Juve, and then he stood out as the one who looked the weakest.
Yeah.
So that kind of worries me a bit, but he is that type of player that we've had before. He's very good defensively. I mean, I work with a lot of people who follow the French league religiously. They say he's kind of similar to like that Michael Essien type. He's got a very good engine. He can attack and he can defend. But I don't know if you saw, but Ray Wilkins said this week that why should we be signing this player for 40 million when we have Chalobah who can do that exact same thing? Should we not be giving these players a chance, or should we just be throwing more money? I mean, it's strength and depth is obviously a fantastic thing, but to have him and to have all these other options, like, I don't honestly know if we need him, and that's all I can say about it. I really don't know if we do.
Yeah, I'm on the same belief. I really don't think it's a signing that we need. Now, like with Monaco, you know, anytime I look at players, I think when you assess them, you've got to see how they do in their own like tactical setup. Now with Monaco, their big strength was that they used to attack down both flanks. That's how they used to get a majority of their goals and their chances. And really, Fabinho and Bakayoko weren't really too involved in build-up. They were more like, you know, defensive screens to help support the, you know, the two centre-backs, because obviously the wing-backs are getting forward for them. So, like, obviously I'm a nerd, so I always like to look at stats and try and get readings of it. Bakayoko, in like nearly the same amount of games as Matic, hasn't had as many touches of the ball. I mean, it's understandable because, you know, Monaco aren't really a possession-based team. You know, they're all about fast transitions down the flanks. But one thing I noticed, even though Monaco have more options going forward, if you include their two strikers, then you've got the, you know, the playmakers and Lamar, Silva, and then the wing-backs going forward. That's like 6 options in front. And his key passes made were, you know, were very poor, I think, in terms of him playing for such an attacking team. I think he only created 15 key passes, you know, 15 chances throughout the season, which isn't really as high. Now, the reason why I need to bring this up is because at Chelsea, we don't play like Monaco. At Chelsea, it's all about playing balls in the middle to the front three, who then keep the ball and bring the rest of the people in. This is why Matic had nearly 300, 400 more touches of the ball, purely because we play more centrally compared to Monaco. Now, do I think Bakayoko can transition to play that role, especially when it seems that his use of the ball isn't much better than Matic's use of the ball? And that's one thing that worries me in a way, because especially throughout last season, it was always Fabregas coming on, changing the course of the game. And when Fabregas came on, he made sense of all our possession play. You know, Hazard especially would come to life. Costa, he was the one supplying him goals. That's when Costa started to get chances. I think that if Bakayoko comes, it tells me that Fabregas won't be starting again. And I don't think that a midfield of Kante and Bakayoko, especially because they got to be better on the ball and use the ball much more efficiently, is going to be key to getting the best out of our attacking players.
No, I agree.
I agree with that, because I mean, you can't sign a player for 40 million and drop him to the bench. That's not how it works. And you know, this season, I think a lot of people have said it, and I don't really agree. A lot of people think that Chelsea won the league because we weren't in the Champions League and because we had that less amount of games to play. If you sign someone like Bakayoko, do you sign him for squad rotation? Do you still play Fabregas and Kante? And you know, you're not going to drop Kante Player of the Year for a very good reason. But like, how do you keep a player happy? Like, you know, Fabregas, I think Conte worked him really, really well last season. You know, he played him at the times that he knew he would make a big impact. But I think from what I saw, you know, he was very disappointed to be dropped in the FA Cup final, especially against Arsenal. And, you know, we lost, and I'm not putting it down to that. There was a good amount of reasons why we lost that game. But can you keep Fabregas happy for another season playing a bit part? I don't think so. And can you sign a player for 40 million and put him on the bench? Definitely not.
Definitely not. Exactly.
It's going to be interesting.
Exactly. And Richard, what's your thoughts?
Well, let's make a number of points. So first of all, I completely agree with yourself, Ben, and with Ray Wilkins earlier in the week talking about, you know, why bring in this lad when you've got Chalobah there? I mean, this is a ready-made replacement to come into the midfield. You know, he's come through the academy and he's bided his time. You know, he's been on various loan spells, not just in England, not just in the Premier League, but in Serie A as well. And you can see, especially playing this summer in the under-21s, for example, you can see that the maturity in this game already. Why can't he come in and step in you know, into that position? Secondly, you mentioned about Bakayoko not being that good in the ball. I did see a stat the other day that he did. I think he completed the most take-ons or something like that in as a midfielder in Liga. But as you said, he's not the creative one. Fabinho was the one who was making the forward passes.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that Matic does do quite well. Although he doesn't dominate games as much, as you said, Ben, and he has a number of off days, he is good at playing the ball forward. And like you have a lot of defensive midfielders these days who they like to play it sideways, they love to play it back, they have to keep the ball. To be fair to Matic, you got Kante doing the running. Matic does try and play the ball forward, which I do like. I mean, do you need? I personally don't think you need Bakayoko. To be fair, he's a good player, but I mean, again, for strength and depth. But you know, if you're going to spend that amount of money in a player, he's going to want to be starting.
Exactly.
And then, you know, you've got Fabregas there as well, who again was used very well last season. That's why I think he probably didn't start as many games, because if you know, Kante and Matic were, you know, let's say playing for 70 minutes when the game was tight, then when the game opens up, that's when Fabregas can come on and find those little gaps and find those little spaces. But I as you said, Ben, I can't see him being happy playing that bit part role next season. So it's quite an interesting dilemma, like how Conte solves that and keeps everyone happy.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Kante is a definite starter, 100%. So you've got Chalobah, you've got Ruben Loftus-Cheek, who's, you know, where does he fit in? Because he's someone who is going to demand game time next season. So you get Bakayoko in as well and Fabregas. That's 5 central midfielders who all want to play. And Conte's got great man management skills, as we know, seen last season. People really buy into him, but he's going to really need to decide how he's going to keep everybody happy, everyone fluent. Because you know, a key to Chelsea's success last season was the fact that you did have a starting 11. You could reel off Chelsea starting 11 at the back of a hat. Maybe because you weren't in Europe, so the fact that you could just play every Saturday, you can do that. Next season, will you be able to? You know, that's the dilemma that he needs to solve next season, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that sentiment too. But I don't know. I think with Chalobah, I know a lot of people talk about if Bakayoko comes, Conte will be able to transform him. You know, that's like, to me, that's like that rhetoric that's just always assumed. I mean, does Conte really have a history of really developing a player? Yeah, people might say Pogba, but he only had Pogba for like 2 seasons, and Pogba was already a ridiculously exceptional player already. But I don't know. I think that if anything, Chalobah, because again, this transfer to me depends on where the Matic is going to go, and if reports are to be believed, it seems that United are a destination for Matic. But I just think with Chalobah, this guy, what I really like about him is that he plays a lot of progressive balls. And I think that if people are of the sentiment that Conte is good at coaching players, and why can't he do that to Chalobah then? I mean, he's already got experience. The way he plays, you can tell his intelligence, right position. He's very quick with his distribution. He doesn't hold onto the ball for seconds. It's always a first touch and pass, and he can find the pass too. I think that, you know, if Chalobah, I think he deserves to get that chance for next season. But again, Bakayoko, we've just addressed that. Now there's talks of bringing Lukaku back, and also there's rumours of Lewandowski coming. There's rumours of Mahrez, rumours of Sanchez. Now, I know Lukaku is a very divisive figure when it comes to Chelsea fans, especially. You know, some people like him, some people think he's a donkey. You know, it's black and white. There's no real like nuance. But Ben, I need to hear your thoughts. I'm already seeing you shaking your head. The minute I said Lukaku, I'm seeing the anger in your eyes.
I think part of that comes from the fact that, you know, this whole selling players and rebuying them again, like, it's kind of embarrassing. Granted, it's worked out a few times for us. You know, Matic exactly is a key example. David Luiz this season proved, I think, every doubter he's ever had wrong, because he was superb. But we've seen how it's affected us before. Players like De Bruyne. Be interesting to see how Salah does at Liverpool now as well, considering we sold him for peanuts. And I mean, he was rubbish for us anyway, so I'm not expecting a lot. But you never know, these things come back to bite us. Selling Lukaku in the first place, I think, was a mistake. I think we trusted Mourinho too much, and he's kind of... I have a lot of thoughts about Mourinho, which I won't get into.
That's for another video, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm not getting into that. That's for another day. Lukaku is someone who was the second highest goal scorer in the Premier League last season, and looking at that alone should be like, okay, you know, that's exciting. This man can score goals. He's proven in the Premier League, and he is still... He's been around for almost, feels like 30 years, but he's still so young. He's such a young player. I also read something, I don't know how true it is, that we have a big resale clause with Everton, around 15 to 20%. So whatever they would get for him, we would get. And I also heard that they still owe us around £20 million for him. So if we were to spend a lot of money on him, from what I gather, it's not actually going to cost the club that much money. From a footballing point of view, however, I'm divided. You know, like you say, it's black or white with him. It's some Chelsea fans think he's a massive, useless pile of turd, and the rest think he's an unbelievable striker. Is he better than Diego Costa? I don't think so. Has he played in Europe before? No. Is it a massive risk to put all our eggs in that basket? I think it is. I mean, Chelsea fans, and me especially, I think from a strictly playing point of view, you can see the comparisons to Drogba, and that's why we signed him, and he had that time to play with Didier at the club in training. It must have helped him. Is he going to be as good as Drogba? I don't think that's possible. It just worries me because it's a lot of money to spend on him, and I don't want to go into this season with two strikers again. I think the fact that we're getting rid of Costa and looking like we're going to have just Lukaku, it's a risk. I don't know who we're going to have as a second, even a third striker. So I don't know. I think I'm just waffling on about whether or not I think he's good enough, and I really have no idea. It's such a tricky one. It really is.
Exactly. Now, before I give my thoughts, Richard, what's your thoughts?
I personally think Lukaku could be a great signing for Chelsea. I think if you look at his scoring record this season in an Everton side who probably didn't create that many chances, you know, I mean, how many goals was he behind Harry Kane in the charts? I mean, it turned out to be 4, but if you break it down, Harry Kane scored like 8 goals in 3 meaningless games at the end of the season. So although he was out for a long time, and I'm not taking anything away from Harry Kane, brilliant striker, but those 8 goals in those 3 meaningless games obviously propelled him. So people were saying, oh, Lukaku, blah, blah, blah. But and also people saying Lukaku doesn't turn up in big games. Well, in a lot of the big games, he's not getting the service. And if he's playing as a lone striker, there's only so much he can do. You know, maybe his hold-up play could be better. But when he does get a chance, you know, his goal-scoring rate does, you know, is proof in the pudding that he is a quality striker. And in a club like Chelsea, where he's going to get chances in abundance, especially, you know, with Hazard, with Pedro, the quality that you've got there behind him, he's going to get chances. His issue is, you know, will he be able to convert on that big level? You know, we've seen him play, and obviously, like you said, Ben, he hasn't played in Europe. We've seen him in the Euros. He's done okay. But you know, he's still a young man, 24 years of age. I still do feel, though, that Chelsea do need another backup. Obviously, you've got Bastui there. Again, another quality young striker. But probably do need one more, especially with Tammy Abraham going on loan as well. You know, and again, that's probably another debate for another day, you know, who you're going to get in. But on the subject of Lukaku, I think he'd be a great signing for Chelsea. You know, he's big, strong, and, you know, Chelsea are quite an athletic side, and he fits in seamlessly. So I think it'll be very good.
Yeah, definitely. Like me, I'm of the opinion too that Lukaku would be a good a good player to bring.
A good video too.
Sorry. I said that because I'm actually working on a video now that I'm going to be uploading tomorrow, like talking about why Lukaku is a good signing. I'm not going to spoil everything, but I'll talk about 2 points. Basically, I'm of the belief that, you know, sometimes you don't see the best of what a player can do because maybe they're at certain clubs where they got certain tactical systems where they're bottlenecked. And I think Lukaku is an example of a striker that's like bottlenecked by Everton. Now, there was one stat I noticed. He had to deal with 300 and something long balls last season. 300 and something long balls. Now, I think only Benteke had more in the Premier League. He dealt with like 525, which is just stupid. You know what I mean? It's just a ridiculous amount. Lukaku shouldn't be getting aerial balls. He's a striker that's better on the floor, better on the ground. And that just goes to show you that most times the guys I set it up front and Everton don't really have a real setup under Koeman. are just pumping long balls up to him where he has to run onto them, or he has to bring people into play. And you can see why that's not the most effective way to use him. And the fact that he's still got 25 goals in a setup like that proves his quality. And another thing too that I like, it's the type of goals he scores now. When I was comparing Costa and Lukaku, I noticed that a lot of Costa's goals come on the left-hand side of the penalty box. That's where he's more comfortable, you know, putting shots in with his, you know, right foot in the bottom corners. And nearly half his goals came from that side of the pitch. Now with Lukaku, however, he gets his goals from all the angles. A majority of his goals come in the middle, and to me that's a great sign, because that's probably one of the hardest areas to score a goal, because your anticipation needs to be good, because he needs to get in front of defenders, he needs to get, you know, perfect the timing of your runs. And I really think that's the type of striker we need. Now we know one of Costa's biggest criticisms isn't just his hold-up play, but he doesn't attack the space inside the box. He's always waiting for the ball to come to him. And the stat that proves that he likes being on the left-hand side, well, second half of the season when teams are defending really deep against us, they're blocking that space off. So that's why he wasn't as effective. But with Lukaku, he's always constantly attacking the space. He's always in that right position. And we need a striker that attacks the space in the box. I think if Costa had that ability, would Conte tell him to be going now? You know, I'm not too sure. I think Lukaku has that, as well as, you know, the guy to me is probably the strongest player in the league. Like, we've all seen that video of him showing Jamie Carragher how he spins defenders by holding them off. Now, one thing I noticed too is that Lukaku obviously doesn't get fouled a lot, and Costa gets fouled constantly. Now, you might be thinking, yeah, it's good because Costa wins free kicks and that, but how many attacking moves get broken down because he can't hold the ball up or he's losing it? That doesn't happen with Lukaku. Now, the bonus is that at Everton, he's by himself. At Chelsea, with our 3-4-3, he's going to have Hazard beside him all the time, and Pedro. So already, that's going to boost what he can do, because I think one of Lukaku's best qualities I don't really get credit for is his layoff passes. Like, he'll do a quick first touch layoff and he'll run in behind and attack the space. When do you ever see Costa play a quick pass and then make a run? You don't see that from him. And I think it goes to show you that Lukaku's reading the game is actually really high, because he knows where to be all the time. Now, if he's, you know, we need a striker that can really, really move. And I think Lukaku playing up front with Hazard in that, and he can hold the ball up better too, and he's better in the air. I think it makes a lot of sense as a signing for next season.
I think it'll be interesting to see him back at Chelsea, because I'm hoping that he'll come back with a better attitude, with like, okay, I actually have something to prove now. He talks a lot, doesn't he, in the press, whether a lot of the stuff is mistranslated or misinterpreted, but he seems to talk a lot, and he's always saying, you know, I can be this type of player, I can do this, I can do this. This is his opportunity to show it 100%, and if he doesn't take an opportunity to... I mean, you saw that video of him for when he was 16 at Stamford Bridge, looking around like, oh, this is where I'm going to play, I'm going to score there. When he had the opportunity at first, I think he felt like he was like the heir to the throne, and he could just kind of stroll in and just do his own thing. Proven by that Super Cup final when he missed that penalty against Bayern.
Yeah.
He was very nonchalant about it, kind of just strolled up, tried to like stroke it in, and we lost the game. Meaningless game at the end of the day. It didn't bother me in the slightest. That was the nail in the coffin for his Chelsea career at first, though. So as I say, like, if he comes back and he has the right attitude, not like the attitude Costa has, because, you know, that's the reason Costa's leaving, because him and Conte don't see eye to eye, because Costa has this unbelievable attitude where he is impossible to tame, and it works, you know, when he channels that into being a really good footballer, it works, but other times when he's trying to fight people on the pitch and, you know, falling all over the place, it doesn't help the team at all. Like I said, Lukaku can come in, prove everyone wrong, get his head down and work hard and score those goals. I think, you know, he could win over the whole fan base in a matter of weeks at the start of the season. So I'm hoping that's the case.
Yeah, exactly.
And I got one thing that Lukaku won't have any excuses. Like I said, you know, he's 24 now. He's got that so much kind of talent behind him, and you will have so many chances and so much supply that, you know, you are really expecting him to hit the ground running pretty much straight away. So like I said, only time will tell. I mean, like I said, if he does sign, you know, I do see Chelsea being very strong next year. But it is up to him, as Ben mentioned again about, you know, obviously he wants it, he talks a lot, he talks a good game, he's very confident in himself. and like you said, he scored lots of goals last season. But he needs to hit the ground running next season.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think he can do it. I think he's shown that he's got a history of being able to back up, you know, whatever he talks. I think the past 3 seasons, since he's went back to Everton, he's been scoring more and more goals each season, and his overall play has been getting, you know, like better and better. And another thing too is that he already kind of plays. No, he already plays in a 3-4-3 because Belgium already used that already. So it's not like he's unfamiliar to the system. And I kind of think too that back when he first came to Chelsea, you know, the problem at Chelsea is that we're not really an environment for young players. I think with Lukaku, he wasn't kicked out. He wanted to move himself, and I think, to me, I give him a lot of respect for that, because it's easy to think, you know what, I'm going to stay here and fight for a chance. That's the reality of the situation. Is, do you think Mourinho, when he's got Torres and Eto'o and Bar, is going to decide to play Lukaku? No. We look back at hindsight because of what Lukaku's doing, but in that moment in time, we know that Mourinho wouldn't use them, and if anything, he'd probably be doing a Rashford playing on the wings. You know what I mean? That's Mourinho. So I think that he made the right decision in moving. And there's tons of examples of other players who did it. De Bruyne, and he's one of the best attacking mids in the world. We had this guy. Mourinho didn't use him. Salah, you know, the guy is one of the best inside forwards too, I think, in Europe. Roma's been proving it, banging in, you know, 15 goals a season for like how many years now. At Chelsea, Mourinho, again, he likes his wingers to defend, but when you've got a guy like that, it's about what he does offensively. You've got to play him higher up. So I think there's so many examples of players we've had where they haven't been used properly, especially the young ones. They've moved on, and it's no surprise that all the ones we've sold are doing bits in Europe. You know, Lukaku, De Bruyne, Salah. I mean, it's no coincidence to me, no surprise. And if anything, it shows you the mismanagement by Chelsea. And I think the board's kind of realised that too, because I think they've realised, you know what, we gave this guy too much power, because, you know, Mourinho likes to be able to control things, but he hasn't made the right decisions for how many of them. And this is why he's such a short-term manager, because in long term he's never thinking about the next 5 years. It's always about what's facing them in front. And I think that's why the board too is a bit of a sign-up. But I think that's why Conte is seen as a first-team coach. So he's not going to be the one where I want this player and I want to get him. You know, the club will tell him there's a group of players we'll be looking at for the positions you need. What do you think of them? Pick your best option. I think in terms of like, you know, what's best long term for the club, I think that approach is better.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you never know the kind of conversations that go on between the board. You know, when Mourinho won the league that summer, and you know, that was a really weird summer, because, like you said, you got rid of certain players and you brought in the likes of Happy Djilabodji and Baba Rahman and stuff like that. And it's like, you know, what was the context behind that? Was he trying to build something long term, or was he restricted by certain things? You know, there were rumours only a couple of weeks ago that Conte was falling out of the board because he wanted to do things a certain way and the board were restricting him. You know, is there something going on that maybe we don't see, that we don't know,
maybe,
with regards to signings and stuff? Because there should be no reason for Conte to have not a fallout, but have a friction with the board, because they've just won the league, had a very successful season. It's his first season. The club love him, the fans love him. Why are things not moving seamlessly? There must be something there that was holding him back. Maybe the same happened in Mourinho. You know, obviously we don't know, but you know, there's always two sides to it. You know.
I think from the Chelsea fan perspective, like going back to the point I made at the beginning, is that people are worried that nothing has happened yet, because I mean, you said Happy Djilabodji and Baba Rahman, and I blanked that out of my memory for a very good reason. That was the season after we had won the league, very similar to what's happened now, where we thought, oh, you know, we got the same squad, we don't really need to buy any players. I don't know what happened. Maybe Mourinho wasn't given the money to buy players, which doesn't seem like it's a real thing. But now, you know, it's the same thing. We're worried that, okay, we've won the league, we can't rest on our laurels, and we need to really strengthen a squad that it is the same squad that won the league 2 years ago, but it's also the same squad that finished 10th in the league the year after. So I don't know how we won. I really don't know how we won the league last year with the same squad. I think Kante really made such a difference, and Luis as well. Conte and the formation definitely changed things up. But you know, I think people are. We've seen a lot of things changing over the past couple of years. You know, now is really. We've said it a few times, like, you know, this era is ending. Drogba left, Lampard left, Cech left, Ashley Cole left, but now. No John Terry next season. That is it. This is the new Chelsea era, and it has to begin moving forward in the right way, we simply cannot let what happened 2 years ago happen again, because we need that strength and depth. We need to compete in Europe. We need to do better in the cup competitions, and we need to try and retain the Premier League at the same time. So we need a lot of things to happen.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, 100% agree. But you know, I kind of think too, that whole issue with two seasons ago, that whole disaster where it's like, you know, like who would have ever known that was going to happen? I blame it entirely on Mourinho. Now, I think like he doesn't get enough criticism for his tactics. I think they're really outdated now, and I think, you know, if you think about it like this, we've spent hundreds of millions on attacking players only to play a defensive style of football. It's not going to be sustainable forever. You know what I mean? You're expecting Hazard to keep 100% concentration, tracking back to, you know, help the fullback. No, that's not his job to do that. And I kind of think the main thing with Mourinho is that it's always team and his approach over like having an identity in the team and getting the, you know, what complements the players and more. I think the reason why we were so successful with 3-4-3 is because, again, it was an attacking style of football and there was more support when we attacked. You know, Hazard doesn't have to, like, if you look at United's, Rashford, Martial on the wings by themselves, isolated. That was Hazard all the time. Now Hazard has Alonso, and that's made a massive difference. Same thing with Pedro. Pedro was shit the season before. Now Moses is on the right. Pedro doesn't have to push out wide. He can play closer to goal, and that was just the main thing, really. I mean, I'm happy that Conte eventually decided to go there, because at the start, during the pre-season last year, the first 5 games, the football was really bad. It looked more the same from the season before. But again, even in terms of those signings, I'm of like a different belief. Like, think about it. We got Baba Rahman because Mourinho wasn't playing Felipe Luis. Now, that seems criminal in my opinion. You know, you got one of the best left backs in the world. He's not playing. So again, he should be someone that should still be at the club. And he was forced out because he wasn't getting game time. Again, Falcao at the time, you know, I felt sorry for him. He never really got much of a chance to really play. Baba Rahman, you know, he was seen as one of the top young prospects at left back. But again, he made the mistake that obviously you're going to a Mourinho team. Mourinho doesn't like fullbacks going forward. Look at Luke Shaw, for example. He doesn't play for some reason, and it's because, you know, he's not as defensively aware. But again, he's only 22, 21, so what are you really expecting? It's going to take him a few years. So I think, if anything, the big signing was supposed to be Pogba, because we didn't really need too many additions to the team. Pedro was seen as a good one. I think that the Pogba one was the big thing. But again, Mourinho wanted to bring in John Stones. I mean, can you imagine if we spent 50 million to sign him when we've got better players now? I mean, that's what I mean. So if anything, I put the blame on him and some of his demands, really. I mean, we've seen it before. Remember the season before when he left the first time, then we signed Steve Sidwell on a free and Claudio Pizarro on a free. Exactly. It's ridiculous. You can tell it's because he was pissed off. So it's like, well, I'm going to show them. I'm going to show their club, because he didn't listen to me. Look what we're stuck with. He's petty like that. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think another rumour to address now. This could be an interesting one. For some reason, we're linked with a defender. I'm a bit surprised why. We've got a lot of good defensive options already. It looks like Van Dijk. The rumours keep intensifying. It seems like a bid has been placed. It looks like Van Dijk will definitely be leaving in the summer. Now, a lot of fans, especially on social media, really, really want this signing to happen. Ben, what's your thoughts on Van Dijk? Is he needed? I'm not, forget about the money, because money doesn't even mean anything these days. But do you think he's needed?
Yeah, like you said, forget about the money, because I'm paying it myself, so I don't really care.
Yeah, exactly.
I think when you look at the team last season, like the first thing that I think is, who do you drop? Do you drop Cahill, who's 90% likely to be our captain next season? Probably not. Do you drop David Luiz, who came back and proved himself to be one of, in my opinion, the best defenders of world football? Probably not. And do you drop Azpilicueta, who played every minute of every game last season in the Premier League, which we absolutely pissed? So definitely not. So where does he play? Do you move Alonso to play as a, you know, are you going to drop Alonso if we sign Alexandra as well? Like, there's another thing. Like, it's defense isn't really the thing that we need addressing, in my opinion. But Van Dijk is that type of player who would definitely fit into the philosophy of what I think Conte is trying to do. Like he's a ball playing defender. He's got a great range of passing, and he's unbelievable in the air. His heading and aerial ability it's amazing. He's too good for Southampton. I think everyone knows that.
Yeah.
He's definitely too good for the other teams that he's been linked to, such as Liverpool and other small clubs like that. So I think us going in for him is a good move. But again, it's the same point we've made about Chalobah and about the other positions. We have Andreas Christensen, and I saw him play in Germany. I've seen a couple of the games, and he is everything that Van Dijk is minus 5 years. Like, has the potential to be the best defender in the world, and I think the fact that he's been linked to the likes of like Barcelona and Real Madrid and other like massive clubs, like, we would be stupid now not to give him some sort of opportunity, because I think he is a natural, successor to John Terry. Like, why not? He's young, he's commanding, he has everything that we need in a defender. But we're Chelsea, so we'll probably spend £50 million on another player. He'll go somewhere for £5 million. We'll sign him back for £300 million in about 2 years' time.
Yeah, yeah. Richard, what's your thoughts, man?
Again, yeah, and I mean, on the face of it, Chelsea don't really need to strengthen, or not need to strengthen at the back, but I don't really feel that the club need Van Dijk, really. Like Ben said, got Christensen there, another ready-made replacement to come in. Obviously, got Nathan Ake, who's still at the club as well. I mean, there was one interesting thing about Chelsea last year, getting into kind of the springtime from about February to end the season.
Yeah.
I don't think you kept many clean sheets, and I think that was the one thing that annoyed Conte the most in most games. Like, you win games 2-1 or 3-1, maybe he wanted some more clean sheets, and maybe he's thinking, okay, in Europe that kind of stuff can't really run, because when it's much tighter, I mean, conceding sloppy goals is costly, especially the away goal stuff, especially group stage, whatever. Again, if Van Dijk comes in, who's you going to start over? Obviously, you've got Aspilicueta, who's irreplaceable. Got David Luiz, who's in that back three, is perfect for that position as a sweeper. So it would be Cahill, but again, if he's going to be the captain next year, he's not going to get dropped. Although Van Dijk is better than Cahill, and again, obviously social media is not the best place to get views, but Cahill, among Chelsea fans, from what I see, isn't very popular because he does make a lot of mistakes. So, not that it would be money wasted, but there is really no need to get him, other than the fact that you don't want anyone else to have him either.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you get him, then who are you going to drop? Or you're going to move to back four? Probably not. So, again, it would be a very good signing, but when you look at the kind of team dynamic, is he really necessary for Chelsea to move forward? I feel Chelsea at the back are resolute enough, don't really need him.
I think so. And I'm of this belief that him coming is going to be like a case of like diminishing returns. Like, for example, you probably say defence is one of our strongest areas, and it's like, so if we sign Van Dijk for 50 million, what we're going to concede maybe 1 or 2 more goals less per season. Now, people could argue, but it could be in crucial games, but then the chances of that happening won't be the same, because the mentality for big games is completely different. It's like not ordinary games, so it's kind of like it's not even going to be the most valuable use of the money. And I don't know, I just think that you brought up a point earlier that I'm trying to remember. I don't know why, I just forgot. But shit, what the hell? You brought up a point earlier that I wanted to address. It'll probably come back to me. I'm just gonna keep waffling on. But yeah, I really don't think that Van Dijk is needed. I remember the point you brought up. Basically, we were starting to concede a lot more goals during the second half, around February onwards. Now, I've got to blame it on Conte, because I noticed that too. And basically, how we defend without the ball changed. Before, when we were going on that 13-game unbeaten run, we didn't have the wingers coming back to help defend. It would be Aspi or Cahill pushing out wide to help Moses or exactly, or Alonso. And then Kante would go out on the other side, or Matic would go on the other side, and that was actually the best way for us to defend, because then we weren't getting forced back so easily, and then we were able to win the ball a bit higher up and in better positions, and it was more effective, because basically the whole thing was that if we force these teams out wide to win the ball, then we can play it back into the middle and then start our counter-attacks from there. But then Conte changed the whole thing. So I think he got more pragmatic because Conte is a very pragmatic manager. So instead, he changed it to a 5 at the back. So the back three would be really central and compact. And then he told Pedro or Hazard to come and support the fullbacks to make 4 midfield, 1 up front. But then the problem is, first of all, Hazard and Pedro aren't as good. So they didn't, Moses and that didn't even get that much protection in a sense. But the main thing was that we invited way too much pressure because we were so deep. We were finding it hard to play out when we won the ball. So we were just inviting it back in. Now, there was one game this season that highlights why I think, why I don't like defending like that. That was the Juventus game. Now, the first half, I thought they were better than Real Madrid's. All Real Madrid did second half was play Ronaldo up front with Benzema close together. And then Allegri fell for the trap and then converted back to that 5 at the back, 3 central, and then, the wing backs by themselves. But then Madrid were better on the ball. Modric got in the game because there was more space. Because
they pushed Modric.
Exactly. Because he could. Because obviously the back 5 was so deep that no one was really getting up to close them down.
Absolutely.
And then they were getting space on the flanks. And that's the main reason why they conceded goals. And that's what's happened to us this season. So I think Conte needs to change the defensive approach of, playing this back 5 and instead stick to having the fullbacks pushing out to help the wing backs. Because that's when we didn't concede many goals. I'm surprised that Conte stuck with it because we barely kept any clean sheets after.
Do you think that more clubs are kind of cutting onto this 3-4-3 formation? It's for both yourself and them as well.
That's a good question. I mean, they definitely have.
It's exactly what I was just about to say because, at the beginning of the season, it was not a brand new thing, like it never been done before, but we were blowing teams away using this formation as soon as we changed it. And that happened for about 2 months before people started realising, okay, this is exactly what's happening. This is how we need to... You saw the amount of teams that went for 4-3...
yeah.
Try to get this right.
3-4-3.
3-3. Spurs did it. Loads of other teams did it. So I think it took that amount of time for people to cotton on, okay, this is how to stop it. And, it worked. But I assume we're still going to play this formation next season. So he's got to have a solution as to make it work once again.
Yeah, exactly. I think it can be a successful formation, but I think the only thing we need to change next year is instead of it's basically our build-up play. We're too easy to predict. Playing quick balls to the front 3 because that's the thing. The minute the front 3 don't keep the ball or hold on to it, then the wing backs can't get forward. Now, a lot of people criticise like Matic and Kante, especially in big games, saying that they got out-muscled in midfield. They didn't get out-muscled. What happened is that when the front 3 is supposed to get the ball, let's say Costa or Pedro lose it, obviously Alonso and Moses know they have to push forward. So the minute they've lost the ball, those wing backs are in like a no man's land, and then Matic and Kante are just isolated in midfield, and they're getting stretched because then the opposition team have more space to attack essentially and get support out wide. So they look like we're getting overrun, but really it's because we're getting isolated. And I think we only have to do one thing next season to change that. Just keep the ball. Like, we're not a possession team. Like, if you look throughout our stats, our average possession is like 51%, which isn't really high. It should be at least, 58, 60%. And I think too, if we focus attacks out wide, let the wing backs bring the ball up. If we alternate how we break teams down, then it's not going to be having these situations where, we can get outplayed if other teams get their tactics right. And that's one of the disappointing things I'd have to say for last season, was that sometimes we're just, previous years, like, when we had our 2 amazing seasons at the start of Mourinho's era, when we lost, it was because the other team was lucky. They were lucky, or we didn't take our chances. We were never, ever outplayed. There's been a few games this season where we have been outplayed or dominated. And I think it's just the tactical setup. So I think these players we're linked with coming in, that's definitely going to improve it. Because if you've got Lukaku and let's say Sanchez or Mahrez, that's already 2 players better at keeping the ball than Costa and Pedro. And if you've got Alonso, who's you've got Sandro, who's amazing going forwards, that's going to give a lot of teams something to worry about. That's only going to give more space to some of our players in the team. So, but yeah, I love how we spoke about this when we were talking about Van Dijk. But exactly. But yeah, I think Van Dijk is definitely not needed because basically everything I just said, he's not going to change how we defend as a team. It's only Conte that can change how we defend as a team. And we've got Christensen, like you said, Ben. You know, to me, I think he will probably be the best defender in the world. And it's kind of like, before we were linked with Luiz, we were linked with players like John Stones and Romagnoli, and we actually made bids for them that were rejected. Now, this is what really baffles me, because in my opinion, Christensen's better than both of them. But we would have signed two, I'm not saying they're shit players, but inferior to Christensen, two players for like ridiculous sums of money, and they would have gone straight into the first team. They wouldn't have had to fight for their place. So I don't understand when we have someone who's better and has had a history of showing that he's been one of the best defenders in the Bundesliga, why he isn't getting that guaranteed first team spot.
He's played in the formation that we have as well. He's played in the Champions League. He's done everything that he needs to be doing to get into the team. And I saw someone tweet actually a few weeks ago, and they said if Christensen doesn't get into the Chelsea first team after everything that he's done the last 2-3 years, that is a proof that the Chelsea youth system and the loan system is a massive failure, because he is now what you would have to imagine as the A-star student. You know, he's been on loan. He's, like I say, he's played in a 3-4-3. He's played in a 3 at the back. He's played in a 5. He's done everything that he needs to do to get to that point where he should be starting for Chelsea. Again, who does he come in for? That's Conte's decision, but he has to be given that opportunity. And if he doesn't, like, I agree with what I saw. Like, it shows that this youth system, this loan system, is just a business deal. It's nothing about football. It's strictly about farming these players out, adding a few million to them, and then selling them on.
Exactly.
So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that he comes in next season.
Exactly. But before I give Richard his piece, I just got to say too, you know, I think the perfect way to accommodate Christensen in the team, it might sound controversial, but I really think play him in the middle. Luiz can play on the left, because think about it. Because Luiz is playing in this central position, you know, a lot of, especially I've been reading journalists talking about how we play, they always get it wrong. Luiz is never allowed to leave that back three to push up. You know, he's always the one who's staying behind. And I kind of think, we know that Luiz is probably, you know, one of the best, or maybe even the best ball-playing defender in the world in terms of his passing, his attacking play, and how he sets attacks. Now, we know that in our back three, the wide defenders are allowed to get forward. But it's like, you're having Gary Cahill playing forward, like, he does nothing with the ball offensively. Now, imagine if we had Luiz, who we know is fantastic in an attacking sense, playing a role where he can get forward. And then you got Christensen, who already plays that centre back role in a back three perfectly already, accommodating him in the middle. I think that would probably work out best, and I think we would probably get more from an attacking sense with Luiz going forward, because Luiz has 2 feet. He's got a left foot and a right foot. Cahill doesn't, and he's better defending out wide too. So it makes a lot more sense. I know it won't happen, but to me, it makes a lot of sense. Richards.
No, you're absolutely right. I feel, as Ben said, and like what I said earlier, kind of about Chalobah as well. I mean, you know, Christensen, if there is ever a ready-made replacement to slot into that first team, it is him. And I think it'd be a massive outrage if he's not in and around the squad at least next season. You know, and it does make you think, you know, is it actually a business model? Are they just producing these players to farm out? It's interesting how the narrative's changed, because before, a couple of years ago, it was all about, oh, you know, we're going to get Chelsea players into the first team. Now it's all about, oh, now we want to create professional footballers.
Yeah.
Like, so that whole narrative shift's making me think, okay, is it just a business model where you're, which is fair enough, great for English football, great for other clubs to come and get, but, you know, if you're a young player at Chelsea, are you there thinking, I'm going to break into the first team, or I'm going to be a professional footballer and move elsewhere? Which, again, is good for them and it's good for other clubs, but surely as a Chelsea fans as yourselves, you'd want to see these talented youngsters come into the side. I think it's so important, especially for, you know, you're talking about having an identity at a club. You know, identity comes from young players coming through, say, okay, Christensen's not English, but he's been in the club for a very long period of time. You know, Chalobah's been at the club for a long period of time. You know, you look at the way Tottenham fans sing about Harry Kane. You know, he's one of our own. People like Harry Winks coming through, and youngsters like Dele Alli. You know, that's Tottenham's identity coming through. And I feel Chelsea have everything to have certain players who can build that identity moving forward. You know, Ben mentioned about, you know, the new Chelsea. Obviously, Terry's gone, Lampard's gone, etc., etc., and they were the core of Chelsea. That was their identity back then. Now they've all left. let's bring some new players through who can create another identity going forward, and that starts with the likes of Christensen, Chalobah, Loftus-Cheek, you know, Bakers, you know, people of that ilk, you know, Abrahams, and
exactly.
You know, it would have been amazing if Solanke was in that ilk as well, in that class. Obviously, he's moved on, but I think it's a time for Chelsea to really, especially, you know, you've got a new stadium coming or renovations and stuff. You're in Europe, you're a massive club, blah blah blah. Have that identity there as well as the you know, talent going forward. And I think that's just you know, you look at Manchester United, a history of bringing through players, and that's within the ethos of the club. People say Rashford hasn't played that much. Rashford has played a lot of games, you know, and you know, people like Twanzebe coming through, etc. You know, that's an identity, that's an ethos. Where I feel with that was at Chelsea as well. I just think the club's in a great place at the moment, but I just feel, especially maybe for fans like yourselves as well, maybe it'll just kind of bring everything together. I just feel that's just like the tiny missing piece in the jigsaw. Yeah,
exactly. No, I 100% agree, and it's kind of like, you know, especially these days, the narrative of being like a successful team is like how many trophies you win and, you know, how rich you are in that. But it's also the dynasty aspect. Like, there's a reason Barcelona, Real Madrid attract the very best players in the world, because they've had a history for, you know, tens and tens of, you know, decades and decades where they're seen as the top clubs that you want to go to, and that starts with, you know, having an infrastructure for youth to prosper, and, you know, a lot of different things as well. And I kind of think maybe in the Premier League they just focus more on like the financial aspects, you know, but, you know, to get that type of, you know, dynasty in your club, it's more than finance, you know what I mean? You need to have that like ethos and that philosophy where in the future, because here's the thing, in 10 years time it'll be a completely different squad, and then 10 years after that, I mean, you know, but by the time we're old men, we're going to see how many different squads at Chelsea. But it's kind of like, for the long term future, will we attract the very best? I mean, it depends what we do now to be able to create that dynasty.
The thing is, I mean, the frustrating thing, I have 2 points to make about this. The first point is that you see at the youth level at the club what madness is happening. Right? Like, we are winning everything. Like, every youth league, every youth FA Cup, under 23, under 20, under 16. Like, these kids are winning everything. We have the best youth team in the country, and we have done for the last 7 or 8 years. It's been consistently unbelievable. To see these players come through would be unbelievable as well. It would be such a fantastic thing as a Chelsea fan. I mean, people love John Terry because he came through, played his whole career, won everything, was the captain. Like, that's the Row of the Rovers kind of story for John Terry. The other problem is, though, and whilst Conte is bringing some of these players through and giving them the opportunity, the thing is, it is so cutthroat now. If we spend next season playing these young players, playing Abraham up front, for example, playing Lewis Baker, playing Chalobah, playing all these other young players, and we finish 7th, and we go out in the group stage of the Champions League, and we go out in the 3rd round of the FA Cup, and we win the League Cup, for example, is Conte going to last? Of course he's fucking not. He's going to get sacked, because that is what Chelsea need. We are paving the way for success with this youth team, but are we ever going to give them the opportunity? Like, how can you drop these players for these young players, knowing full well that, you know, Lewis Baker's not going to provide 15 assists that Fabregas will, that Chalobah's not going to be as defensively astute as N'Golo Kante is. You can't do it, and we are not giving Conte, I think, enough. We should give him, honestly, do what Newcastle did with Pardew. Give him an 8-year deal and say, just get on with it. Just do what you have to do. We'll be patient. We've now known what it's like to finish outside of the top 4 and the top 5 and 6. We need to allow that to potentially be a thing if we want to bring these players through. But is that what the club wants? I don't think so. The club wants to be the biggest club in the world, and the biggest club in the world has to win the Champions League, has to win more league titles, has to win everything. Yeah. So the two, unfortunately for me, they don't really go hand in hand.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, talking about biggest clubs in the world, you'd probably say that the 3 biggest ones, Real Madrid, Barcelona and Bayern Munich. Now, you know, especially, I know social media again, I need to stop bringing it up, but they're of the belief, a lot of people, that the average person, that, you know, you need to have quality international level backups for, like, you know, for every position. But it's kind of like, well, when you look at the 3 biggest teams in the world, I mean, how many youth have Real Madrid used? I mean, Asensio, he only had 1 loan move. It wasn't like he did massive bits when he was at Mallorca, but he did enough to show, yo, this is what I can do. Now look what he's done now, playing with better players around him. Same thing with Vasquez. Since he's come I mean, he's been, you know, great for them the past 2 years he's come. I mean, Morata coming back as well. I mean, and Nacho Fernandez, the amount of games he's played, I mean, you can go on. I mean, Barcelona, I mean, they brought back Denis Suarez again after, like, you know, a spell at Villarreal for like a season. You know, they brought the likes of Munir in, Sandro. I mean, they've so many examples of players that they've used. And then looking at Bayern Munich, I know they bought them, but they've still used the likes of like Kimmich and you know, some of those players. So this whole idea that the minute you use any young player, then you're just at a massive like negative loss. It's just like a complete myth, and that's not the case at all, because you've got to realise we've got very, very high level standard of youth, not just like, you know, like a decent player playing for Blackburn, you know what I mean? They're like another level, and that's testament to all the wins in the Youth Cup, because it's not just winning, it's dominating. I mean, to beat Man City in the second leg by that goal margin, who's supposed to be really close to us, and you know, one of the best youth teams in Europe, to beat them that convincingly shows you the levels. And the crazy thing is, when you notice that all these kids, most of them are from Hammersmith, coming through from when they're young, becoming the players they are now, it's really weird that at Chelsea you seem to get like a Harvard level education when it comes to coaching, but the minute you turn 18, it's like, well, we don't care about you now. So it's like, why invest all that money to then not show that same care in their development? Because it's like, well, you know, if you're producing, let's say, a sick attacking mid and you're making him play for some team in the Championship that play defensive football, what's he going to show? Like, how is he going to get into that team? And then we know what the football market's like. If you know, if you don't get advertised well, then teams aren't going to look at you. I mean, let's be serious. It's not like every club has the scouting system like Porto or Sevilla, because if that was the case, no clubs would ever be signing shit players in a year. They'd all be successful. So I don't think we do the best to really get the best out of a lot of the top prospects. I mean, you know, the likes of Masunda, I mean, really, Bertrand Traore going. And again, this is the thing. Now, what I'm really disheartened by is that when we've had a chance to introduce youth, I'm not saying necessarily as in first team players, but in the squad, we've decided to spend money on backups instead. Now, Mitchie costs 35 million. He's our second most expensive signing ever. And really, in terms of a footballing ability, I'd say that Bertrand Traore is a better player and would suit playing that Conte striker more than Mitchie did. You know, but again, he doesn't get a chance. He's going to Lyon, which I think is fantastic for him. And Mitchie, I mean, he'll probably go by next season, because he's not going to play much games again. And you know, so many examples of signing backup instead of introducing a player into the team. And I think that's the big main thing that shows that we're not really a club that cares about, you know, really harnessing what we have and letting them grow and prosper.
It's a difficult one, because especially at a club like Chelsea, in the managerial hot seat is very much a revolving one. And you know, I feel with Conte, the fact, you know, he's won the league in his first season, it buys him a bit of time, but you know, like as Ben said, obviously it's difficult in this kind of era and culture, but give him a long contract. And I genuinely feel that if he did bring through, you know, the top crop of young players, I mean, you mentioned Masonda, people like Jeremy Boga, I mean, he's a talent. If they all came through at a similar time, I genuinely feel that the fans and everyone else should be able to see, look, we're trying to build something here. And it's not a case of, I don't think it will hamper things too much. Even if you didn't win the league the next season, or let's say you finished 4th or 5th the year after, but these guys are coming through and getting better, I generally feel that people will be able to see, look, okay, we're actually building something. It's actually like a kind of a process going on here, which maybe not next year or the year after, but the year after that will just be unbelievable. And then, as you mentioned about dynasty, that's what will happen. But because managers are under so much pressure to win, especially in the Premier League, when the stakes are so high and the money's there, they just want to think, how are we going to win at the quickest, you know, most, I say, efficient, quickest way possible. But I feel with Conte, the way he's come in and brought his own ethos with the 3-4-3 and blah 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 and everything else, I feel that if he was given like a longer contract and able to put his own stamp on things, that bringing through X amount of young players in a kind of transition period, I don't feel will affect the club that much. But again, on the flip side, you mentioned about, you know, sponsorship deals, Nike, whatever, they're throwing money into the club because they want to keep seeing success, they want to keep seeing that. But, you know, maybe it's about time that people start thinking, okay, we're going to give you X, Y, Z because we want to see a kind of ethos and dynasty there as well. At the end of the day, like Chelsea is still going to sell X amount of shirts, whether you win the league, whether you come first or 16th. At the same time, whether you're in the Champions League or not, you know, the fact that you're throwing money into Stamford Bridge obviously shows that the club's got money and it's got that kind of base there anyway. Chelsea are a big club, so you know, for 2 or 3 years of just, even if it's a transition period where you bring in these young players, but I again kind of mix them in with experienced heads around them. So Kante's not that old, but you know, people like him, people like Cahill, like leaders, you know, people of that ilk. Then, like I said, in 2-3 years' time, when they develop and they become absolute beasts and monsters on the pitch and at their peak, imagine that. You know what Manchester United did 20 years ago when everybody came through, and people say it can't be done again. It can be done again, but it just, there's so many other factors that prevent that, which is a shame, really. And maybe the whole thinking around the whole ethos and whatever probably needs to change, because, you know, as I mentioned about sponsorship deals and stuff, and it's based on success, but they're still going to get their money's worth regardless, because there's so much money in the Premier League anyway, and Chelsea are such a big club around the world. It's not going to matter if Chelsea finish outside of Europe for 2 seasons in a row. I don't feel it'll be that much of a big deal if these players are progressing and developing, and by the time they all become 24, 25, they are at, you know, world beaters, basically.
That's that. You're right, because that's what tends to happen. I mean, when you look at all of the, you know, players when they become world class, it tends to be around the age of 26. Like Bonucci is an example. This guy was hated in Italy. No one thought he was. No, people didn't rate him playing in defence. It wasn't until Conte gave him like a tactical role that complemented him. He was able to grow, and now he's seen as one of the best. But this has only been for like 3 years. He's like 29. I mean, Yaya Toure is another example. It wasn't until he went to Man City and was like, you know, playing further up when he was like 28, when he was actually seen as like proper, genuinely world class. So I don't know, you know, you have to have a vision and you have to give time like to prosper. And I don't know, but I think it always falls down to managers. So I think Conte is very pragmatic and he's had no history. Like an example, I think when Juventus won the treble, I think didn't they go a season unbeaten? Didn't they? Didn't introduce any young player from the academy into the team. I think they were unbeaten the whole season. They won the league months before it finished, and he still didn't feel the need to introduce. I mean, we've seen it now. I think one example this season was against Wolves. Now, to me, Wolves is one of the games I hated the most this year when we beat them 2-0 away, because again, we're playing against a Wolves team that were 19th in the Championship, and then we played without the ball for most times. We didn't dominate possession or keep it, and it was kind of like, oh, well, Conte saw what they did to Liverpool, even though Liverpool used academy players when they played against them, and it's like he played a full strength team. Hazard was playing, Costa and everyone. I think only Jaloba played with Fabregas, but still. But it's like, you know, you're going to play a full strength team and then play without the ball against the 19th team in the Championship. And I think, to me, that really signified Conte as a manager, how he sees the game, how pragmatic he is, and how he doesn't want to take any chance whatsoever. And I think if you've got a manager like that, then really, you know, again, maybe he complements the Chelsea philosophy. I mean, we pretend that we want these things, but in reality, we just want to win. And this is why we only sign managers that want to win. They don't care about dynasty or taking risks. And I think there's been so many examples this season where youngsters easily could have come on for the last 15-20 minutes. And again, it's kind of crazy now, because I mean, are they even that young? I mean, they're all like 20 years old now. Like a real youngster would be bringing Mason Mount on to like have like the last 15 minutes in the game. I mean, he's good enough to get that chance, but again, until the club really change that, I bet again that won't ever happen unless we had a really disastrous season where we're out the Champions, you know, no Champions League football and Hazard and a few of the big players go. Then maybe you'll see like a drastic change like that, but till then they're just here to make money. It's cynical, but I think that's the case really. Yeah, so basically the last player that we're linked with seems to be another player in the forward positions. Seems to be right wing. Been linked with Sanchez, linked with Mahrez, linked with Adama Traore. That's a random one. Ben, what are you thinking for next season? Who would you ideally want to see? Do you think we need someone there?
I want to start with Traore. if he's better than anyone we have in our team, you need to tell me who that player is now, because that man is terrible. He is so bad. He's like a one-trick pony who has like FIFA like 99 pace.
Yeah.
That's skills 0, crossing 0. Everything. He's so bad. And another thing, you know, you talk about how if we sign him, like, do we have players who play for our youth team who are worse than him? I don't think so.
Yeah,
I really don't. He's that just seems to be one of these stories that just doesn't go away. If we sign him, like, that's me, I'm done. Like,
that's it. Taking the piss. That'd be the biggest piss take ever. Yeah.
It would be embarrassing. I mean, he's been so bad. Like, he's been relegated twice in the last 2 years, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think
Villa,
that kind of shows. Yeah, it kind of shows his ilk. The other two you mentioned, Mahrez and Sanchez. Mahrez, again, you know, he was, when Leicester won the league, he was probably as good as Vardy or Kante was for them that season. He was unbelievable. Last season, you saw a few glimpses of that. I remember when they beat City, he played so well. But apart from that, like, did he do enough last season to... His first season in the Premier League with Leicester was, like, on audition. He didn't go anywhere. He stayed with them. And last season, I kind of feel like he didn't live up to his own hype. And granted, you know, credit where it's due, he built up that level of hype around him because that's how good he was. Last season, I wasn't so impressed. Leicester weren't so good. It was probably his fault as well. You know, they relied on him and Vardy, and both of them didn't really do much last season as they did the year before. Sanchez, I mean, are we really going to sign Sanchez for Arsenal? Are they going to let that happen? Like, they're not going to let it happen. They wouldn't sell to... I don't know why, but they would sell him to City. They wouldn't sell him to us. I just really don't see it happening. I would love him. He's such a complete footballer. He can play anywhere across the front three. I wouldn't drop Hazard for him, obviously, because Hazard is, in my opinion, a better player than him. He could play as a second striker. He could play in... Pedro, as you said as well, man, like, Pedro was so bad for us. And do you remember when we played Everton and he ran directly back to our corner and he just kind of ran across the whole back? That's something before. Last season he proved me wrong. He was superb. I hope he does it again this year. I'd obviously rather play Sanchez than Pedro, but you got to remember that Sanchez left Barcelona because Pedro was keeping him on the bench. It could happen again. I don't know. Do we need wingers? Do we need defenders? We need. Who do we need? I really don't know. These players they were getting linked with. I just don't know if we need them. I would take Sanchez hands down every single day of the week. He's definitely leaving Arsenal. There's no way he'll stay there.
Yeah, he can't.
They're on the decline, like going down straight away.
Exactly.
But he can go to Bayern. He can go to. Oh, that's pretty much it, really.
Yeah,
he's not going to go back to Spain. He'll go to Bayern or he'll go to City. In my opinion, we don't have a chance.
Yeah, like, honestly, like if he was to stay at Arsenal, I'd probably lose respect for him as like a footballer in terms of like, where's your ambition at? Like, you got no Champions League. You're gonna be retiring soon. Like, do you really want to waste the whole year of your life where you're not challenging for something? And do you really think this next season after is gonna be like Arsenal's chance to do something? I think Sanchez, to me, this is his last chance really to win like something big, because I don't think at Barcelona he won much there. I think they were going through their. I think one. Yeah, I don't think it was even there at the time.
The season when Atletico won the league, that was his last year.
That was his last year. He came the season before that. I think that's when was it Madrid or Barca won the league. Then I can't remember. Yeah, a while back. So I don't think he's even won much as a player really, and I kind of think that. This is your chance now to really, your last hurrah. I mean, you've seen examples of tons of players who've done that. Fabregas, for example, like Fernando Torres, even, I mean, tons of examples. So, really, I don't think it's impossible to get him, really. I mean, he's definitely not going to Bayern Munich, because I'm thinking you're Sanchez, you loving life in London. Imagine you're a footballer, you've got to relocate to a new country, you don't speak the language. Like, are him and Vidal even that cool? Imagine if they weren't even friends and he's got to like rely on Vidal to get around, like, helping him integrate into the team. So I think a move to London makes sense. Arsenal have a history of selling. I don't think, again, Mourinho's not here. Mourinho was one of the guys where if he was the manager now, it's impossible. It's not going to happen. He stopped Bar from going to Arsenal. Now, Conte, Wenger got like an amicable relationship. There's none of that stuff before. I think if it just came down to agreeing a fee, I think it could happen. And I think Sanchez, because like with our front three, like they're not even wingers. They're more like 3 forwards in a way. So I think Sanchez on the right, swapping with Hazard and Lukaku, I think makes a lot of sense. But yeah, Richard, what's your thoughts? Do you think it's realistic? Do you think the Sanchez ship sailed?
I mean, it would be a frightening prospect to have Sanchez playing for Chelsea. I mean, him and Hazard in the same kind of forward line is a frightening prospect for most defences in the Premier League. Again, like you said, whether Arsenal sell him to Chelsea, we don't know. But money talks at the end of the day. I think, yeah, if he does go, he does start ahead of Pedro. That's 100% sure. Pedro's a good player, but Sanchez is one of those players where, like, he's got the flair, he's got the skill, but he's hungry and he's a talisman as well, and he will slot into that side and he will be the main man, no doubt about it. But it's a case of, you know, it's not a case of whether you need him, because he will bring an extra dimension to Chelsea, 100%. You know, it's not. Can I see it happening? It's very unlikely, but obviously you don't rule out anything in football.
Yeah.
With regards to Mahrez again, obviously, you know, very talented player. But it's interesting actually, because the season they won the league, a lot of Leicester fans were not very happy with him. I was saying it was quite a frustrating player. Obviously, he's flary and he's a very good player, and I think he's excellent. But it's weird. It's interesting that the fans who saw him 90 minutes every week in, week out, were beginning to get frustrated with him, even when they won the league. So I did find odd as a kind of outsider. And then obviously had that season last year, which wasn't that good. Yeah. You know, he would bring something to Chelsea, but I don't think that you necessarily need him as much. I think, you know, you've got a system that will suit him, and it would be a good addition, but maybe money could be probably spent elsewhere.
Yeah. You know what, though? I think if Mahrez was to come, I actually really like him a lot. And I actually do think he would kind of be an upgrade to the right, purely because he's got a left foot where he can cut inside. And also, we've got to realise, in regards to Leicester, he's the only player of his ability in the whole squad, not even the first 11. So a lot of times he's going to stand out more if he does make a mistake. Whereas, let's say if Vardy loses the ball, you're not going to notice it as much because he's running. You know what I mean? And I think that really Leicester, the reason why they messed up is because, you know, it's the Premier League, it's professional football. Teams are going to find out your tactics soon. You know, it only takes the most of them 2 times to find out.
It's true. I guess if you're a flair player, like, you're going to make more mistakes than if you're just like your standard run up and down the line.
Exactly, and you'll make even more mistakes when you don't really have anyone to play around you with. You know what I mean? Like, who's going to link up? Who really links up with him? Then you look decent when Okazaki's there, but again, he's Okazaki. You know what I mean? And it's just like, I do like him still. But I just think that Mahrez coming to play for us, where, again, I kind of think he had a Hazard-like season in terms of the tactics being against him, and, you know, the players not really supporting him. And it's just like a one-man army in a way. I think him coming to Chelsea with his left foot cutting inside, because again, he's kind of like a Willian and Pedro fused together, because we know Pedro ain't someone that runs at people. He more runs without the ball. Willian can run at people. So Mahrez kind of combines both. Plus, he gets goals too. He can play the pass perfectly. And his work rate is decent. I think him on the right with Hazard on the left, I think that's an upgrade.
Those wing backs as well, I guess. If they're both introverted, come in inside on the opposite flanks.
And having 2 people out wide that can run at people, because that's the big thing. That's every big club in the world. You know, they're big because, you know, they've got Ronaldo, they've got Messi, they've got Robin. You know, these players make a difference when because once they beat a man or two, that's space freed up. If you got another Mahrez, here's the thing: Hazard sometimes, he can get. I say that ain't the right words, but he has to do it by himself. He's got no one with him. If you had another guy who can relieve the pressure because he can get past a man or two, that's going to free up more space for him, and he's not necessarily going to get man marked. You know what I mean? Like, that thing United did with us last season, that won't happen because they're thinking, are we going to give Mahrez free space or Sanchez free space? No, that's not going to be the thing. So I think tactically, it could help the system, help the system more. But yeah, you know what? We're going to end this live stream now. Not even live stream. We're going to end this video now. Let me say that again. we're going to end this video now, but before we do that, I want to hear your thoughts on who you like to see come and your predictions for next season. Ben,
predictions I'll start with. Actually, the prediction, it depends on who we sign in the next couple of weeks. So if you want to do this again before the season, I can give a proper updated prediction as to who, where we'll finish in all the competitions, because I think it depends on who we'll sign. I think, you know, I'll do it this way. I'll give my starting formation for next season of how I think we'll line up. I think Courtois in goal. He proved himself last season. The Alexandro deal, I know you're very confident about it happening. I'm not so sure. I don't know if it will happen. I think Alonso last season was really, really good, and I think he proved a lot of people wrong who, well, not even, but he proved to people that he is a good player. I would stick with him because I think when we didn't have him last year, we looked weak. So I'd stick the back four of them. So Alonso, Azpilicueta, Luiz and Cahill. Right back, I'd love us to sign someone who's just that little bit better than Victor Moses. I mean, he had a great season, but I think there's someone else in world football. I would say Dani Alves. If we could get him on a £5 million deal, even if he's there for 1 season, 2 seasons, that experience that he will bring would be second to none. So I'd love to see him in that team as well. You know, he knows Conte. The problem is he also knows Guardiola, so it's whoever he prefers. I think he'll get that place. In the middle, I'd stick with Kante and Fabregas. Literally, I really would. I'd have them both there because I think they balance each other so nicely. It's like hot apple pie with cold ice, ice cream. It just
that
it goes,
combination,
it goes so well. So I stick with those two. Left Hazard, right Sanchez, maybe, and up top, I guess Lukaku. I mean, I don't think I'm going to have a choice whether or not he comes, but I might as well just start to get used to it. We could have a strong bench, you know. If we had, I was going to make a point just before, and I'll keep it short. Like, you know, when Chelsea was so successful, we had 2 players competing at such a high level for every position. You had Robin and Cole, but you had like Duff and Wright Phillips. You had Wayne Bridge and Ashley Cole. You had so many centre backs who could play instead of John Terry and Carvalho. You had Gallas. You had so many players in so many positions. If we could have a bench which is like Mahrez, who can come on for Pedro, and Willian, who can come on for Hazard, and Batshuayi or Morata or whoever else can play up front, we'll compete easily on 4 levels. We go far in 4 competitions. So I think with some of these players we talked about, for example Mahrez, if he can come in and be a bit part player, then it will be great. And you know, it's only going to see an improvement for the players who are going to be starting. So. Yeah, I think that's my formation for next year. Probably going to be wrong with Sanchez, but we'll see.
And what's your prediction? Like, where do you hope, you know, we win the league? How many trophies are we winning?
I mean, unrealistically, like you said, where do I hope we finish? I hope we win everything. I'd like to see us back in Europe, kind of going for a really good run in the Champions League. Yeah. I'd love us just to play Real Madrid away because I've been waiting for so long.
We haven't played them, have we?
No. It's weird though.
Not since the 90s. Yeah.
That game needs to happen. So I'm hoping we can get to at least the semis of the Champions League. I say the semis because if we get to the final, you know, Conte has some terrible record in cup finals. So I kind of don't really. It's so stupid. Not I don't want to get there. Of course, I want to get to the Champions League final. I think we can finish easily top 2 in the Premier League. I don't think there's any other teams there. I think City will be our main challengers this year. City and Spurs, but I think Spurs aren't going to be able to improve their squad too much.
They never are.
I think us, City and Spurs as a top 3, right now I'll say Chelsea, City then Spurs as the top 3 in that order. FA Cup, if we win it, we win it. If we don't, League Cup, couldn't give a shit, to be honest. It'd be nice to win. It's always a good starting point to push on for the rest of the season. And the Champions League, you know, the finals in the Ukraine, so I'm not desperate to go. So.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's gonna be dead. Exactly. But yeah, desperate.
But yeah, it's like I said, you want to do this again in a couple more weeks. And
I think it'll be better. Yeah.
We can I can give a proper prediction. But
exactly.
We're going to win the league.
Exactly. Your thoughts. Who are you hoping? Obviously, you're a neutral fan.
I feel
maybe
I
have a mutual
think
opinion then.
if the season started tomorrow, if all the squads as they are, you know, I don't see Chelsea coming. I don't see Chelsea winning the league again. Let's put it that way. Season starts tomorrow. Probably City would win it, and then it's a race for second between Chelsea, Spurs, and United as well. Just given the way that they've strengthened, and also the season started tomorrow. If Chelsea made the quarter-final of the Champions League, I'd be very surprised. Just because the squad is so thin, and also tactically as well. I mean, we all know the Premier League isn't as high of a standard tactically as compared to Europe. So, you know, get through last 16, depends who you play, you could get unstuck. So like I said, it's a big summer, and obviously very early to say. So, you know, don't bite my head off. You know, it's just if it started tomorrow, you know, I'm not 100%
Not too
hopeful.
sure.
But like I said, it's a long summer, and you've got the buying power, and obviously you're in the back of a win. You've got a good manager, so I do see the signings coming. How do I see you guys lining up? I think Ben's pretty much nailed it. You know, you probably will stay as a 3-4-3, and you've got players there who can come in if you want to change it, if it's a 3-5-2 or 4-3-3 or whatever. Probably do need to strengthen that fullback. Like I said, another midfielder, another striker. Just through that core of the team, really. But yeah, I mean, one thing about Chelsea is that they do know how to win through the years. You know, certain games they have that experience. Obviously, now with the likes of Terry moving on, you know, it'll be interesting to see who the leaders in the side are. I mean, obviously you've got Cahill, but you know, you're looking at people like Luis to really step up and you know, and be that leader as well. You know, and people like Azpilicueta, etc. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting time for Chelsea, and I think the Champions League is going to really be a test for you guys.
Yeah.
So it's vital that you strengthen in some way, whether you bring through youth and buy as well. Because I mean, I am of a school of thought that Chelsea won the league to a large extent because there was no Europe, so you could focus purely on the Premier League. So the fact that you've got this Champions League as well does mean that, you know, you do need some reinforcement.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my prediction is I'm just hoping. I only think we need 3 players. I think Alexandro. I need to see Lukaku, and you know what? I want Sanchez as my first choice. I'd be happy with Mahrez as second. I think they're the only 3 players we need. We don't need another midfielder or another defender. I think it's just unnecessary backup. I think too next season. I think with those 3 players, I think we'll win the league again. And I think too that in Europe, I'm not too sure because Conte as a manager, especially cup competitions, he just doesn't ever seem to win any of them. And I think it's definitely his fault because it's his tactical approach. It seems to be more negative, more pragmatic, and I think works against us. And I think that that's something that needs to change for next year. But at the same time, too, you know, Europe doesn't know how we play. I mean, there's a reason why Leicester did so well in Europe last season, because teams didn't know what to expect. And it was funny because, like, when they were playing FC Bruges and they were saying how they were going to wipe the floor with them and they lost, then that shows you the mentality of how most clubs, you know, see opposition. They don't really know anything about them. So yeah, that's definitely that could be something potentially good for us. But yeah, I think that if we get those 3 players, then I think we've got another league secured for next season. And I think then from then on, yeah, it's just going to be exciting times. But that's going to end the video for today. I want to thank my guests for coming on. Thanks Richard and thanks Ben. You guys got any closing words that you want to say, Ben?
Put me on the spot a bit here. No, up the Chelsea, I guess. I don't really know.
Obviously, follow Ben on Twitter. You know, shout out your Twitter, shout out all your things.
Yeah. Like I said at the beginning of the show, check out our YouTube channel, NiiNiiFC. There's a subscribe link floating around here somewhere in the video. We do a lot of stuff there. I do a show a couple times a week where we talk about European football. So make sure to tune into that. There's loads of cool stuff on that channel, and as well you can follow me on Twitter as NiiNii said.
Cool. Richards.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me on. Really do appreciate it. Yeah, you know, just give me a follow on Twitter. See my handles below there. It'd be great to connect with you guys. You know, obviously we're on Instagram as well, off the post news, and we're also on Facebook as well. So yeah, just give us a follow, get in touch, especially if you want stuff on youth football. You know, it's really the place to be.
Definitely. And I think, you know what we've got to do? Another one of these videos again. in the near future. I think, you know, it's been good today. Anyway, you guys, you know, I'm NiiNiiFC. Thank you for watching the video today.